A key for Venture Kid was provided for the purposes of this video. The evil Dr. Teklov is set on taking over the world with a space fortress. Andy, with help from his uncle's inventions, sets off to stop him. Venture Kid is very reminiscent of the NES Mega Man games. It's a simple platformer with basic shooting mechanics. Everything you'd expect to be present is here. You mostly move right, jump on platforms, and shoot your legally distinct Buster gun. Some of the levels do have branching paths for some extra options and choices, but things are mostly linear otherwise. After each level, you're given a special ability to use. These are all very niche and have extremely limited ammo. The boomerang, the first item you get, is effectively useless except in about 2 or 3 places. In most situations, the other weapons are vastly inferior to your basic shot. The only really useful items you get will be a double jump and shoes that let you walk on spikes. Unfortunately, these are still tied to the very limited ammo capacity of your special weapons, forcing you to use them conservatively. You do have a shop where you can spend the orbs you find strewn throughout levels. This lets you buy things like extra lives or a one-time continue, where if you take lethal damage, you'll come back to life instantly. You can also buy an energy balancer and an extra heart container, but they are so prohibitively expensive that you won't be able to get them without replaying levels multiple times. The boss fights are fairly unique, but a bit lackluster. The ones that are more diverse do suffer from being fairly monotonous as a result. Production values are where Venture Kid really shines. The art style is simple, but aesthetically pleasing. It definitely is trying to emulate the NES era Mega Man games in a lot of ways, but does have some unique takes on the standard enemy designs that you'd find in them. The music is actually very good. The level themes are catchy and fit the theme of the area as well. The sound effects are also very well done. It's very similar to classic NES games in terms of that feel. The story is mostly throwaway. An evil doctor wants to take over the world. It's not important in these kind of games, and it's kind of typical of the genre. All you'll get is an introduction and a few extremely brief scenes towards the end of the game, but you don't really play these kind of games for the story anyways. Venture Kid is a pretty easy game. The early levels are mostly complete walkovers without much need for you to engage heavily. The later levels do feature a lot of instant death spikes, so you have to be much more methodical in your progression. At the end, things start to get a bit ridiculous with the instant kill sections, which will result in you being forced to restart some levels. The timing in these sections is a bit too precise for my taste, and I often find myself getting killed because Andy's hitbox appears to be slightly larger than his sprite. It's something that you will get used to, but it can be an annoyance. Boss patterns are basic and easy to understand. They compensate for this by making many of them have points where they are simply immune to damage. Several bosses have parts which cannot be hit and will simply block your shots. This significantly lowers your damage output for many fights. It's more of an annoyance than a difficulty issue, as it becomes more about rhythm rather than spamming as many shots as you can in a lot of cases. Venture Kid does offer 3 difficulty settings, but unfortunately they are mostly the same. There are only 2 differences between easy, medium, and hard. One is your maximum health. On easy, you'll have 5 hearts, medium has 4, and hard has 3. The only other difference is that on hard, bosses appear to have double the HP. This obviously makes the encounters much longer, and it's much harder to win by just attrition. Normal will be sufficient for most players, and hard will just be a bit more difficult because of longer boss encounters. Unfortunately, easy won't be easier enough for players who struggle with these kind of games to enjoy it. A playthrough of Venture Kid will take about an hour on average. It's fairly quick to get through. There are a few sections that are a bit cumbersome, and they may lead to you being forced to restart the level. There is a level select, but you'll have to work through each level linearly first. You can return to levels you've already beaten to grind for extra orbs. The shop's prices are ludicrously high, and you will not be able to afford some things like the energy balancer or extra heart container without grinding a lot. There's no need for these to be so highly valued, as really these should probably just be on your person by default. The only other reason to replay these levels is if you miss some of the hidden content. These treasures aren't overly hidden, and they're fairly easy to find, but completing the final stages of the game only to have the true ending locked away was a bit of an annoyance the first time through. That was most definitely the case with the old school games, but it feels a bit archaic in 2018. That's really all there is to Venture Kid. The different difficulties are fundamentally the same, so you won't get much value out of it past one full playthrough finding all the treasures. If you enjoy replaying really short games, you may get some additional value out of Venture Kid, but most people will probably only play through it the one time. At recommended playing, games are either ascended to the pantheon of games worthy of your time with a recommendation, or are forced to wallow in the miserable muck of mediocrity with a dismissal. Venture Kid is okay. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, but at the same time, nothing really special about it either to make it stand out. The gameplay harkens back to the NES era of games, which includes the true ending being locked behind the secret treasures. The sound and music are excellent and catchy in just the right ways while you're playing it. It just won't really linger with you much longer than that. While I did mostly enjoy my playtime with Venture Kid, there just isn't a lot to it. You aren't really going to be missing anything amazing or special by skipping it. Which is why Venture Kid gets recommended playing's most disgraceful verdict of not recommended. Thanks for watching. If you're like me, and you got to the end of Venture Kid only to find that you need all the secret treasures for the true ending, you can check out my guide for all the treasure locations. It's popping up in the end cards now.